When you're teaching, are you promoting independence or are you building prompt dependency? Hi, I'm Dr. Megan and I guide people in growing, learning, and fostering connection and curiosity. And today I want to talk about how prompt dependency becomes an issue that we need to address when we're teaching. For those of you that don't know, prompt dependency refers to someone relying on the assistance of someone else or certain materials in order to perform a skill. Now, in some situations, we all need things to help us perform skills. Like I'm sure many of you use to-do lists or have calendars. These are considered environmental supports, not prompts. The point of the prompt is to help build independence with the skill. So if there's certain skills that we just know, I'm never going to independently do this, or the person we're teaching, we can see that they would benefit most from having supports in the environment, then we should be providing those supports. That's not what I'm talking about in this video. So when we look at prompting and how prompt dependency develops, it's typically because the prompting procedures weren't implemented properly in the first place. Meaning the time wasn't taken to really analyze, okay, this is the terminal skill that needs to be performed independently. What are the least intrusive things we can do to help build performance of that skill? Oftentimes, because people are taught that errorless is most effective, they go in with the most intrusive prompt from the beginning. So if, for example, if you're trying to teach someone how to answer a question, giving the full verbal answer to that question right from the beginning of teaching, instead of, teaching the information to begin with. So instead of telling the person, hey, your name is Joe, and explicitly giving them a lesson about their name, they're just asking the question, what is your name? Joe. And telling them the answer like that. This happens partially from a response effort standpoint. It's easier for most people to just give that full prompt and not think about how can we systematically build this skill. What do we need to explicitly teach? What kind of lessons do we need to do? And then how do we build in asking the questions once we actually have specifically taught the material? Another way that prompt dependency can form is if prompting, very explicit, intrusive prompting especially, but really any type of prompting, is used for skills that require problem solving. Because the skill we're trying to teach is problem solving, but the prompting doesn't allow for problem solving to occur. So when you're looking at this, the idea would be, for example, a shape sorter. If you're physically hand over hand guiding someone to put a shape into a shape sorter, you're not allowing for that problem solving process to occur. So then we see prompt dependency where the skill they're learning is I just sit here and this person takes my body and puts these shapes into this hole, and that's how this thing is done. They're not learning to look at the shape, compare the shape to the actual shape sorting, whatever you have, a ball or rectangle or whatever it is that takes the shapes. They're not learning to make those comparisons and engage in that problem solving. So we're not really teaching the skill that we're aiming to teach. There's a lot of other reasons why prompt dependency can occur. I'm going to close out with this one just because these are the common ones I see. But another way that prompt dependency typically occurs is when someone isn't actually ready to do the skill that you're trying to teach, and or they're not fluent with the component skills that build up that composite skill. So I typically see this occurring with daily living skills where there's a long chain of responding for like brushing teeth, washing hands, taking a shower, etc., that require quite a bit of motor movement fluency especially, and the client it's not effortless for them to engage in those motor movement responses, and then they're pretty consistently needing assistance to go through that long chain of behavior. And they may also not have they may fatigue easily, they may not have the endurance to go through that whole procedure, or there could be other things like the memory to hold and recall what's the next step in the chain, all of those types of things. There's a lot of different things that can come up, especially with daily living skills. So before starting to teach daily living skills, having that analysis of what are all of the prerequisites, what things need to be fluent before we dive in on teaching this long chain of behaviors. Most people learn, if we just use chaining, whether it's backwards or forwards or total, however they're taught to do it, we can fade out the prompts and they'll be independent. But that's not always the case, especially, of course, if they are missing certain skills that need to be present in order to perform the chain independently. If this discussion about prompting and prompting procedures is of interest to you, I'm going to continue diving in on research around prompting. What are some of the most effective strategies we can use? How can we determine what types of prompts to use with our clients? All of those and probably more in future videos. So feel free to give me a follow.